So coming up next as a guest on the Poolside Perspectives podcast is Kate Wiseman. She is the principal of Sage Outdoor Designs. It was founded in 2008. She has been designing residential landscapes and outdoor living in San Diego, California since 2001, with a focus on personalizing every project to the homeowner. And as a result, her aesthetically diverse designs have been widely published both locally and nationally. Kate carries a bachelor's degree in botany from the University of California at Berkeley and a master's of landscape architecture from Cal Poly Pomona's School of Environmental Design. She began teaching with Genesis, which is one of our industry's educational programs. She's been teaching for Genesis from 2012 and now teaches a variety of courses, including 2 core curriculum courses required for students to achieve the SWD Expert and SWD Master status, which she holds. Welcome, Kate.
Man, I'm looking forward to talking to her about this. So
that's an impressive resume.
Yeah.
Well, and education, my God.
Well, I'm curious because Berkeley is one type of school and Cal Poly is a totally different type of school. So I'm kind of interested on what her philosophy is with design from that.
So you lived in California. What's the difference between the two of them?
Well, I
know a lot about Berkeley.
So Cal Poly is very practically grounded. Like the University of Davis landscape architecture program was like, oh, well, we don't really get into how to build things. That's more Cal Poly's thing. We're into kind of the theory and to figuring things out and, creating pioneers and thought process. So anyway, this is going to be an interesting conversation, what she brings to the pool business.
I'm looking forward to talking to her because I think, our pool industry, it's small, but there's a lot of very talented people in it.
Okay. Well, today we have Kate Wiseman with us here today you're from San Diego, right?
I am. San Diego, California, born and bred.
You were born there. Oh, I didn't know that part. Wow. That's
rare
real.
beast.
We used to drive over there 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah. So, we want to talk to you today because you're a landscape architect, and there's not a lot of people that have that honor and license and title, and so we'd really like to find out how that came about because I saw in your bio that you went to Berkeley and Cal Poly, which are kind of 2 different styles of schools, at least in my viewpoint. But you may not think it that way. But anyway, I was at Davis, University of California at Davis. I lived there and worked there in Davis. I didn't work at the university, but I had TA'd when I was in college. When I TA'd in college, I thought it'd be really cool to do that again at Davis. And so I went and I talked to him and I said, hey, do you ever need any help with somebody? I'm licensed now and everything in the state. And with like landscape construction or something like that. And they were like, oh, we don't do things like that. You need to go to Cal Poly to do something like that. And I was like, okay. Anyway, it was just, that was my perspective. And I said, well, what about Berkeley? And they're like, no, we're like Berkeley. But you went to both of them. You got a degree in botany, right?
Yeah. So when I first went to Berkeley for my undergrad, I thought I was going to be a scientist when I grew up. So I started out with biology and then discovered pretty early on that the part of biology I seemed to get a big kick out of that nobody else did was the plant side. And I don't know if you're familiar at all with what plant biology looks like these days if you do it professionally, but it's mostly food genetic engineering. So after getting to the point where I was, working in labs and things, I realized that this was not the right path for me and started looking around for what in the world am I going to do then?
Right. So you graduated from Berkeley and you're in the professional world and it didn't quite fit the niche you were looking for.
Well, luckily I figured this out just before I graduated. So I had, summer internships and work experience while I was in school. And the one thing that I loved in school that every other student seemed to hate was memorizing the names of plants in Latin.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought these classes were phenomenal and everyone else thought they were, tedious, boring, and impossible.
Yeah. I remember Ilex vomitoria was one of my favorites. So
Right?
dwarf Yopon Holly. Anyway.
When you start learning what the names actually mean, they're funny. A lot of them are funny.
Yes.
They are definitely interesting.
So I was lucky to come across somebody who was in a landscape architecture program at that point, and she was speaking the same language. And luckily Berkeley had an undergrad in landscape architecture, so I just went to the library and started reading.
Okay.
I still graduated with my biology degree, but by the time I graduated, I'd read my way through, freshman landscape architecture program, basically.
Okay. So then you transferred over to Cal Poly from that point? Or did you work for a while, or how did you go?
I worked for a couple of years because I wasn't going to make the same mistake again, right? Of just jumping in until I knew for sure. So I worked for a couple of different landscape architects. I worked for a civil engineer for a while, and I worked for a landscape contractor as like the in-house designer for a while. So it was years before I went back and finally got the landscape architecture degree, which was a master's from Cal Poly.
Right.
And just kept working my whole way through that degree also. So by the time I graduated, I had plenty of work experience in all different kinds of landscape architecture.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's so diverse because most people, what you do in the field of landscape architecture is just a small part of landscape architecture. In fact, I always wanted to do residential design when I was getting my degree, and they're like, no, you don't want to go do that. You want to go do something neat. You want to work to do this or this and that type of thing. And I was like, no, I really like residential. So did you always want to do residential work, or how did that transpire?
I did. And I still think that that's the most creative side of landscape architecture. I think of it as like the traditional design world. I wanted to be a traditional designer.
Right.
And they also in school tried to talk me out of residential. It's really looked down on by the landscape architecture community, which is such a shame. And so as a result, I didn't learn almost anything in school that was applicable to residential design. It was all work experience. I learned, absolutely nothing about water or hydraulics or, any design surrounding water in school. And I think they had us learn 250 plants in my master's program. And I don't know about you, but I've probably got 3,000 plants memorized, right?
Like, you're in Southern California. I mean,
yeah.
You have the mecca of plants. I mean, I remember taking my state board exam, and it was like, wow. I just and I knew plants very well, but you had to learn all the stuff from Southern California, which made this huge library. But yeah, 250 plants is hardly anything. So, but that's really cool that that's what you always wanted to do. So, but yes, that was it was frowned on in my. Which was funny because then when Reed Schindler went and got his degree from Oklahoma State, they actually encouraged, they had a whole year that they dealt on residential design in his program. And I said, in my program, I had one project in 4.5 years that was a residence. And we never designed a swimming pool, but fountains were incorporated in a lot of the, corporate projects and stuff like that, but not any residential bodies of water ever. So
this is interesting because we've talked about this before with landscape architects, and you're basically saying that, you go to landscape architecture school, you're not necessarily learning the residential side of things, or even like we've talked about with pools. And so it's really cool though that to spend that much time in college. I commend you, and to have that database behind you to work with. But I think what's being said here, just to be clear, is that you go get a landscape architecture degree, that doesn't necessarily make you a very knowledgeable pool builder. You can build pools, you can design pools, but to your point, you don't learn hydraulics, you don't learn a lot of that stuff. And so, we've talked before where, somebody says, well, you need to get a hold of a landscape architect, but what I'm hearing, because I'm kind of a layperson with this to some degree, is that most landscape architects are going to be working on commercial projects.
One thing I would say is what you did training wise, at least it did for me, the initial design theory. And I mean, I use bubble diagrams every single day. Okay. Which was part of the entry level of the design. So a lot of the things that I did learn were very applicable to what I do. And it does help me, through a process and coming up with a program and the elements that I want to try to incorporate and, relationships and things like that. And, site analysis, I would say, was probably one of the most important things to me. And that's something I picked up a lot in landscape architecture. So there's a lot of things that are adaptable, but we didn't work on residential projects. Would you say that's probably?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? The programs out there that are formal, bachelor's and master's degrees, I think they're going to teach you how to think like a designer, but they're not going to give you any of the detail about how that gets from that point into the real world. So
right.
I didn't know, the parts of a swimming pool or what I had to choose as a designer.
Right.
Working with a swimming pool until I was out of school. I just didn't have any idea.
Yeah.
Well, and the industry is just so small. I mean, there just is, up until recently, I mean, you and I started in Genesis way back when. Sounds like you did too. But now we've got this plethora of all these educational opportunities. But the real way to learn about swimming pools is to get involved in the education in the industry, because you're probably not going to get it elsewhere. And we have this small, really awesome industry, but that's where people need to go.
Well, it's a great resource for people to figure things out, especially today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is through the education. So I want to track back just a little bit before we dive into the educational whole thing. So did you always work in San Diego? Or as you progress through things, you just go back to where you came? I mean, how did you start Sage, your firm?
So Cal Poly has two campuses. The most famous is the San Luis Obispo campus, but the master's degree is taught at the Pomona campus.
Oh, I didn't know that.
About like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive from my hometown.
Okay.
And they purposefully make it so that there's no class on Fridays, so that if people need to be working their way through school, they could, in theory, work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then go back to school. So that's what I did. I would drive every Thursday night. I would drive down to San Diego and, work through the weekend and get as much billable time in as I could get, and drive back up on Sunday night and go back to going to school on the weekdays. And it was completely exhausting, but it really gave me a great leg up as far as getting into residential landscape design for exactly the reason we're talking about, right?
No doubt.
That real world situation, which most of the students were not doing.
Oh, no. Yeah, I was the same way. I worked at a nursery and ended up as a designer for the nursery all through college. So, I got out. I'd been working 3 years full time when I got my degree. And yeah, it was a huge advantage in that aspect. So did you open your firm when you graduated? How long have you had your firm open?
I didn't open Sage until 2009.
Oh, okay.
So I graduated with the master's in 2006. And what happened was I was working for a landscape contractor at the time, and he sent a bunch of us to what was then the Aqua Show in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Which was how I got my first taste of the swimming pool industry. He put, I don't know why he did this in retrospect, but he put me in a perspective drawing class. And I was like, okay, I did this in college, but sure, why not? And I took an 8-hour perspective drawing class, and I learned how to do a perspective drawing fast enough that I could do it for actual work purposes. Like I could actually do it for a client.
So was David teaching that class?
He was, yes. Yeah. And yes, I actually didn't get anything thrown at me. So as far as I'm concerned, I must have been like a favorite student or something.
You came in with some skills to begin with. So
right.
That helps tremendously.
It helps.
Well, and David is very well educated. He probably appreciates what you have done and had done up to that point.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I think he was like in some ways a little confused why I was there also. And at the same time, I was like, are you kidding me? This is the best 8 hours of concentrated education. Like everything I learned in this 8 hours is something I can go turn around and do professionally tomorrow for a client.
Right.
And it's everything I'd been craving throughout my whole educational process was just, I want the real world nitty gritty. I wanted this is a business and I want to know how to be good at this business.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah. So I thought it was just excellent. I was hooked.
Well, and his design class is good.
Yeah.
He's fun to be around.
He's a passionate man.
Yes,
so,
he is.
So awesome. So I was curious. I always thought that you got tied into the education process and everything through Skip because he was in San Diego. So anyway.
I know, right? So what ended up happening is the contractor I was working for was just a very charismatic person. So he introduced himself to Skip at that same show and said, hey, I'm building stuff in San Diego. I don't know if you ever need your things built. And, this is my designer, Kate. And what Skip did, which I just still think is so kind, was he said, hey, do you want to look at all the classes? Like, I think they were throwing 5 long programs at that particular show. So he just took me into each of the different classes and let me see what was going on and whether I needed to take it or didn't need to take it. And, at that point, we ended up via that contractor building some of Skip's work and things kind of went from there. But yeah, it wasn't just because he was in San Diego. That was a lovely coincidence that kind of kept the whole thing moving.
Oh, that's cool. It's a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
So you are now, are you the head of the design department with Genesis? I'm not sure of titles and stuff like that, but so you're very involved in the educational process in the pool industry and outdoor living industry now. And that you've been doing that for a long time. So tell us how that all transpired and came about.
Inspired. Yeah, well, just quick correction. I have stepped down as the design chair.
Okay.
And that's always supposed to be a rotating position, right? That was the idea. So Paul John Boulevard is leading that now. He's the architecture teacher.
Yes.
And doing an awesome job. So if people have ideas on courses or whatnot, he's now the guy to talk to.
Awesome. So how did that transpire? When did you start teaching? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so it actually happened when David Tischerman left Genesis, which was I think 2011 or 2012. And there were a lot of teachers at the time who had a financial relationship with David, and so when he left, they left. Just as a conflict of interest problem, I think. And so there was 3 or 4 significant roles that Skip needed to fill very quickly. So he asked me if I'd consider taking on the elements of design class, the kind of fundamental principles of design class. And I had never taught anything in my life up until that point. And so after freaking out about it for a while, I thought it sounded like fun and decided to take it on. And it's still my favorite class. I love teaching that class.
Yeah. It's always fun to open people's eyes up to the process of design. And it is a process that is very learnable if you understand all the pieces that go into it. And so I never took that class because I had a degree in landscape architecture and they allowed me not to take that class. But I did take, when you started teaching the advanced one, I think, the very first time you taught it. So it was fun to sit in. And again, just learning things that you can apply to a daily situation is, I think, extremely helpful. And the funnest thing about that was all the different styles that you had that, looking at in architectural and different forms and stuff like that. So that was really cool. So you've been teaching since 2011. So do you teach a lot of different classes, or do you teach primarily one class, or how does that go?
Yeah, so I've definitely taken on more since then. And our goal was always to have multiple teachers on each course if possible. So for a while, Jason Brownlee took that course over for me, which I thought went really well. And then I started teaching the history of swimming pools and water features class, which we completely made up from scratch because I couldn't find any kind of reference material on that anywhere.
It's tough.
Yeah. So, we
Did you volunteer to go to Italy and do research?
I'm lucky enough that most of the features I have in that class, I've been able to see a lot of them. So I've got Italy, but Turkey, I need to get to Turkey.
I was just going to say Turkey.
And Israel. I should probably also do that.
Yeah.
Now, you just came back from a trip.
I did. I just came back from India.
So, I'm going off subject here, but so as a designer, I think is one of the coolest things to learn things is to travel. I'm a nerd. Every time I go to different places, I'm always looking at different things. My wife's like, how many, you're looking at the ground, it drains. Really, is that exciting to look at the scenery and stuff like that? And I'm like, well, there's all these cool things and everybody solves things differently. And
it's a sickness we have.
Yes, it's a sickness we have.
Sickness we have.
So was there something really fun or cool that you saw when you were in India? Or there's probably a lot of things.
So many things, and there's no apples to apples comparison. It's like every single thing you see every day is wildly different than your expectation of it. From the design perspective, I fell in love with the physical items, the textiles, the handmade things, the carvings, the colors. There's just this beautiful, like, personal ornamentation as design, whereas there really isn't a lot when it comes to, like, say, the inside of someone's house is not designed to any way like we do. This idea that we, are on Pinterest looking at pictures of the insides of houses, there just isn't an equivalent for that.
Right.
So it was really fascinating, where it would be like, in some ways there would be things that were so much more designed than what you see here. And in some ways there were things that were so much less designed.
So was that trip just to go and look at design and that sort of thing, or was it something else as well?
It was something else as well. So my husband is Bengali, and we were going for his cousin's wedding, which, if you've heard about Indian weddings, they're quite a big to-do.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a 5-day, 8-event extravaganza.
Awesome.
I've not been to India. I'd like to go there.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to go to an Indian wedding too. So anyway, they're both fun.
Definitely fascinating culture.
Yes, most definitely. Well, that's the fun thing about to see different cultures and different things. And so I think travel is really fun. So since I broached that subject, is there, as a designer, is there one place you've been that's been really more rewarding to visit than any other? I put you on the spot because this was
a tough question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say the majority of travel I've done is in Europe. And I don't have a single European city that I've been to that wasn't fascinating from the design perspective. A little over a year ago, I was in Barcelona, which is just absolutely filled with wonderful design. And we got to travel down to southern Spain and see the Alhambra, which was a life-changing piece of just, that tour was the most interesting 4 hours I've spent in years,
Right.
It's interesting how that works out, because we're so used to things being a certain way here, but to get out of the country and go see some of these other cultures and other things, I think it's a big part of, being a designer and understanding all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and there's such a bigger picture philosophy
Mm-hmm.
behind the design of different cultures, right? It says so much about the people who created it and how it came about. Yeah, the Alhambra was all these fantastic, complicated patterns. And what I didn't realize from pictures is how three-dimensional the patterns are. There's all of this kind of carving and decorative plasterwork. What I didn't realize is that it's not just an interesting pattern in 2 dimensions. It's actually it's a fully three-dimensionally fascinating patterns.
Wow. So now that you know that, do you notice that detail on the photographs you've looked at?
Yeah, but it's so hard to capture in a picture. I see why I'd never noticed it before.
I've got to go look at
Like if
some.
you look up at a roof, the inside of the ceiling of something, it will be almost like fractaled back, back towards the upper center of the roof. Yeah, it's a really astounding effect and amazing, mathematical technique.
Yeah, I've got to check that out. So see if I can notice any of the details in photographs. So anyway, or maybe I should just go there and that'd be good enough. So anyway, or better.
They have the current newest high-speed train in the world to get you from Barcelona down to the south in about 6 hours. So it's very fun. 300 kilometers an hour.
Wow. How'd that feel riding in it? Does it feel like you're going 300 kilometers?
No, it's really smooth. You don't feel like that at all. Yeah.
So we touched base. So you're very involved in the educational process. So one of the things that we were asking was if you had a friend and they weren't in San Diego. Well, let me ask you one other question, a side note. So do you travel doing design work, or do you just mainly work in San Diego?
I try to keep the vast majority of my work here. Occasionally, as a special project or a favor, I'll do something outside of San Diego. But as you know, that involves trying to figure out all the appropriate plants for wherever the climate is, and there's a lot of background work that has to go into an out of town landscape project.
Right. So okay, so
we agree.
Yes. So you work mostly in San Diego. So if you had someone that was in a different part of the country, okay, let me backtrack again. So when you're doing design work, because you said landscape, you're doing master plans of people's homes and their front and their backyard and all the elements that are involved in that. You're just not doing planting design.
Correct. Yes. I always tell people it's anything outside the doors of their home.
Okay. So you encompass all of that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to refer someone to someone else in a different part of the country, how would they go about finding a good designer? How would you recommend them they go through that process?
Yeah, well, there's definitely certain ways that happen more often. My favorite way is if you can find your way to images that you like of someone's work. So I'm a huge fan of the website house.com because I think it gives homeowners an excellent opportunity to flick through a lot of pictures of pools and landscapes. And when you find one you like, it's going to identify the designer. So a lot of clients find themselves putting the same designer's work in a folder again and again and again. And at that point, it just becomes really obvious that that's a good designer for you to call. And it isn't based on, just what someone said about you. Like they can see whether your design aesthetic fits with theirs. So it's always my favorite way is if I want a client to come in already having some idea that they think I'm a good designer and they're excited about my work and they're excited to work with me. It just makes everything much smoother.
Okay. So you would say for them to check out House would be a resource that they may want to consider. That's an excellent idea. So do you have a particular style?
No, I specifically don't. My particular style is that I work very hard to read and understand each of my different clients and turn around a design for them that is exceptionally personalized to them. So what I tell people is, if you look at my website and you see something and you think, oh, well, that's nice. I mean, I don't want it, but it's nice. Then that's perfect because they don't have to want it. Somebody else wanted it. It was made for that other person. So it crosses all right design styles, aesthetics. I mean, it's as unique in theory as the homeowner is the idea.
So this is one thing that I think does come into play with people that have training in landscape architecture. Is I think a lot of those individuals, I will speak for myself as well, is that's part of the fun of the adventure is not to have a style, but to work in multiple styles. So, but anyway, so to find someone that's good in a particular, so house is a resource. So, okay. So from an education standpoint, is that something that you would recommend a friend to consider looking at their educational background and training before you pick a designer, or do you think that's an important feature?
I think the education is important, but I also think that idea that they have to be able to function in the real world with real people and real uh, building circumstances uh, in a lot of ways is even more important. So the other thing I would say is, you're the homeowner's architect, their general contractor, their interior designer. They're probably going to know who are the good landscape designers in your city. It's a big world, small world thing. At least in San Diego, it's a really huge county, but we all know each other. So a great starting point, I always think, is to find somebody in the industry that you've already hired, you already trust, you already know them. And listen to who they're recommending, or at least their opinion on the person that maybe you already found some other way.
Okay. So other professionals in the design industry so you collaborate then with a lot of other people. So looking for other people that could collaborate with you in your particular project. Okay.
Yeah.
That
Well, it
makes
tends
sense.
to be, the good people attract the good people, right? So
Sure.
the best architects and the best general contractors, they're people that I want to know for sure and be interacting with because it's fun. I'd rather interact with people who are great at what they do, right?
Most definitely.
Kate, look, I just absolutely am fascinated with your delivery and your smile and your passion for what it is that you do and the commitment that you've made to doing it. I mean, it's very impressive. And it's part of what, we want to do with the podcast is we want people to be in touch with people that really love what they do, that are good at it and care about it. And that's why Mike's asking the question about, how do people find, anybody? Because typically they're getting on the internet, plug it in. I want a swimming pool. 10 pool companies come up. They're making 10 phone calls and lining people up. And this industry has morphed so much just in the last 5 to 10 years. And we're all having to do so much more than we ever had to do as just pool designers. And so the education is crucial at this point. And we want the homeowners, to know this and to actually be able to identify, is this somebody that really is going to care about my project? I mean, is it just somebody that's just selling another pool and moving on to the next job or whatever? So it's just, I just wanted to say I appreciate what it is that you do. But the education thing is, both Mike and I feel it's just so important. And so thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, and I should say too, the homeowners also have that instinct. They don't often trust themselves though. So if they are meeting with, 3 or 4 different pool companies and they're, interviewing each of them and maybe they're having some of them do design or maybe not, from that first meeting, if you can tell that the person you're speaking to has that right personality where they're excited about what they do, they're excited about your project, they're treating you like a real person with, complicated needs that are very different from every other client they've met. I think you can get a sense of that as a homeowner in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And part of it is just trusting that in my mind, that's more important than anything on the website or the bottom line as far as, do they use 3D software or not? When do their prices come in? If you can have that connection with that original designer or salesperson that you meet, everything about the project's going to work out, and it just makes everything less stressful for everybody.
100%.
Absolutely.
So I take it down a scenario. So you're going to build your own personal home project. Okay. Outdoor living and pool. And if you were going to do that for yourself, what would be the most important item that you would want in that project?
Like a scope of work item.
Like, yeah. What feature you think would be your most important thing?
Well, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a silly answer.
No, that's we're all into perspectives here.
Yep.
So, I've had plenty of silly answers. So anyway.
So I'm a big believer that it's important to personalize your yard experience for you. I live in a really close to the downtown area. I have a very small property. And if I were to have a swimming pool in my yard, I would want a pool where I could cool off on a hot day and I could sit in it with a cocktail. And I'd want other people to also be able to sit in it with a cocktail and chit chat.
Right.
So a pool for me would be small. It wouldn't have any of the, sports elements to it. There'd be no swim lane. It'd be all benches and steps, the whole darn thing. Right. Because it's a hangout zone is what I want to have.
That is probably one of the most popular pools that people are requesting today.
Is it? Find every time I draw something like that, they're like, "Oh no, but we need more open space in the middle to swim." And I'm like, "That's not."
I'm doing more. At least me personally, I'm doing more and more projects that people are all about. We would rather, this is the place of relaxation and tranquility. And I want to just hang out and enjoy the space. And I'd rather die than break a sweat in this pool. This is a place just to chill out and come home and unwind. So no, I'd say half the projects I'm doing right now fall into that category. And I had somebody that said the other day, nets and goals are outlawed. They're not allowed on this project. So,
nets and goals, no water slides.
No. This is not about recreation. This is about relaxation. So anyway, well, awesome. So
it's almost like an entirely new category that's, gotten popular over the last few years because, I've done, some designs where definitely benches, ledges, steps, but you're not doing anything but going in there and sitting and engaging with somebody else and just enjoying the cool water and getting a break from life.
100%.
And I don't know that that's maybe why some of the other stuff that we're seeing come into the industry, like the plungy pools and some of these prefab pools, are becoming more popular because people are like, let's just drop it in and be somewhat done with it. I mean, there's lots of different options for sure.
Oh, most definitely.
In San Diego, we don't have a lot of fiberglass swimming pools. It's very rare. But if it was an option, if I could find a really beautiful fiberglass swimming pool, I would totally consider that option for my property. It would be the right size for what I need.
Cool. That sounds like a great space that I would thoroughly enjoy as well. So I don't think you would be alone in that space for sure. So where do you, with your creativity, because you come up with all these unique things, where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, it kind of goes back to that previous answer. I try to get my inspiration from the person. Right, from the homeowner. So when I first meet somebody, I'm asking them questions to help me understand them better as a person, and I'm looking at anything they'll show me. If they've remodeled the inside of their house, then I'm fascinated at what choices they've already made because those are sort of expressions of their personal taste.
Yes.
But so are lots of other things, right? We wear our personal taste in our clothes, and in the cars we buy and the stores we like. And there's all sorts of ways to kind of try to start figuring somebody out. And usually by the end of that kind of information gathering, I've got something that is really fun to play with, and I can kind of take it and run.
So do they say, you get me? They explain that, wow, you actually are the one that hears me and understands me. I mean,
Yeah,
and then when
that's what I hear a lot. You're listening. You're such a good listener.
Yeah. And then when you present the design, it fits them, right?
That's the idea. Yeah. And it pretty much works. And every once in a blue moon, I will meet somebody that I cannot understand for some reason. And in that case, I try not to work for that person, because I sort of say, look, I know I can't deliver something exceptional for you, because I don't think I'm the right designer for you. I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
I think it's good to be able to recognize that and do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily it's few and far between. Mm-hmm. I have been very lucky that way.
So if you were going to make a recommendation to someone that was new in the industry of design and the outdoor living and pool aspects, how would you recommend they go about developing their knowledge base and, developing their skills?
Yeah. Well, I guess I feel like the first couple of years should just be drinking from a fire hose. So I think the education that's in the industry now, there's a lot of great options for people that didn't used to be there, and that's great. And I also think that there's nothing like real world experience. I was really happy that I worked in design build for a long time before I started my own design only business, because there's no better way than to learn from each other, right? Having somebody that I could ask real world questions of was huge. And then I also think that if you start thinking like a designer, the whole world becomes education, right? Everywhere you go, you're seeing things and interested in things in a different way. So I almost think it's a personality type, right? Some people are design nerds, and we just are, it's.
Yeah, my wife will sometimes say to me, "What are you taking a picture of?" I'm like, "That's just interesting over there. I might use that for something."
Right.
Some pattern or, something that looks unique, some offset that I hadn't thought of before. But yeah, every day, everything I see, it's like,
I love looking at the floors of elevators because there's always creative patterns that are done in the flooring of those.
Elevators, that's great.
Well, I mean, it's just, there's all these different things you look at that everything's designed. I mean, everything we live with is designed. Okay. So, but you can look at, and come up with creative different things and find inspiration. And people are like, where did you get that from? Well, I'm not going to tell you, but it was the floor of an elevator.
The floor of an elevator. But definitely finding things and making them into other things, right? It's, oh my God, I saw this paving pattern that makes me think I could do a wall like this, or something where you can take the idea and vastly reinterpret it. Right? They're everywhere. You can find them all over the place.
That's the fun.
That's the fun part. Yeah, I think.
I think the other side of this too is, and you're a design build firm, so you build your projects, correct?
We are not design build. Within my own firm, I'm only design. And I have a dozen or so contractors that I work with and refer out.
But you spent some time in the field, is what I heard.
But I did spend some time in the field before I started my own company. Yeah.
And I love that. And I actually laughed out loud when you said the fire hose for the first 2 years, because I just was imagining. Really, that's a great statement, because it's right. Get in, jump in, all in.
All in, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I did things like I went to the local wholesale nurseries and I pulled their availability lists, and I made sure that I knew every plant on that list. Because if they're selling them at the wholesale nursery in San Diego, it means you can probably grow them in San Diego. Mm-hmm. So it was just like every resource I could get my hands on. We're really lucky in San Diego because we have the zoo and the zoo safari park here. Mm-hmm. And they are actually that what they claim is that they have more wealth tied up in the plants than in the animals at the zoo, that it's just also a huge, amazing botanical collection.
It's pretty cool.
So I grew up as a San Diego kid, kind of surrounded by the insane, vast variety of plants you can grow in San Diego. And just, like, many sort of theme park like places, the zoo is designed to make people look somewhere or do something at any given moment, right? They're trying to get you to focus on this animal or walk down this pathway. And so even as a young kid, it was like, oh, look how cool this is. They did this little design thing so that we couldn't see the fence that's hiding, that's holding the animals in. And that was a weirdly great design inspiration source.
I know every time we drove over there from Phoenix, I just was fascinated with the amount of landscaping and plants and the stuff that would grow. And it not only would grow, but it would just be beautiful. And, the downtown, there's, different places where they've got these hanging baskets and they're 4 feet across and there's, just hundreds of flowers in them. I mean, it's on a grand scale. It's absolutely beautiful because in Phoenix, it's pretty dry there.
I was just thinking you probably have the most diverse plant palette of any spot in the United States.
Probably, yeah.
I'd say that's very possible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So any last thoughts? Because I could talk for a long time, but we're gonna. Any thoughts that you would have for a homeowner that's going through a process of designing a project that it would be important for them to think about?
Well, in regards to who they're going to work with on that project, I always just like to remind homeowners that these people are going to be in your life for a while, right? A swimming pool project is not a super quick project. And so as much as, you want to pick somebody because, there was a magazine that had a photo that you really liked, the biggest thing that matters in my mind is having a good rapport and being able to trust the people that you're working with. Yeah. And if you can do that, everything's going to turn out great. And so if you have a niggling suspicion even that you can't trust somebody, don't hire them. That's not the right person.
We deal with clients longer than some of them deal with their spouses. So
feels that way sometimes, right?
It does. But, it is all about relationships and communication and understanding each other and, the rapport you can create. Again, that's if that's not a good journey, then it's not a fun journey. And none of us are doing this to get rich. So we do it because we love it. So anyway, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today. So learned some new things about you. That's cool. Anyway, will you be here in Dallas in November?
I will be in Dallas in November. I think I'm going to do the Elements of Design class.
Awesome.
And hopefully a small handful of short courses too.
Okay. So we'll put your contact information in with the podcast so people can reach out to you as well if they've got also additional questions.
They're considering education and they just want advice on what classes to take or where to start or what order or any of those things. I'm happy to answer them.
Oh, that's real helpful for people when they're starting out.
Yes,
what direction to point that fire hose.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Awesome.
Okay. Well, again, thanks, Kate. We'll look forward to seeing you in November, if not sooner.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks so much for this opportunity. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate.
Have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Coming up next on Poolside Perspectives podcast, we have a guest, Jana Auringer. She is from PebbleTech International. She's the quality assurance manager. And PebbleTech is based out of Scottsdale, Arizona, which is where I'm from Phoenix. And I've used PebbleTech for, I think, 30 years. So I love the product. So I can't wait to talk to her. A little background on Jana. She's a 40-year veteran of the swimming pool industry. Jana has owned a swimming pool plaster company, a pool service company, and a consulting company in which she has compiled a vast knowledge of swimming pool plaster science and solving problems.
She's promoted the industry through her affiliations with the National Plaster Council on the board of directors and various committees, as well as the National Pool Industry Research Center. She served on the APSB board of directors and was chairman of the Service Council 2 terms and is an IPSA member.
Jana was presented the APSB Region 3 Volunteer Leadership Award in 2012, selected as the NPC Member of the Year 4 times by her peers, and was honored as an APSP Fellow in the 2012 inaugural Fellows class. A native Texan, she travels the U.S. and Canada to troubleshoot plaster issues and promote education in the swimming pool industry. That is a long resume and it's very impressive.
Oh, well, she is very impressive. So thank you for being on with us today. So,
thank you.
The podcast is to promote information for homeowners. So what we found is that there's a lot of things that people don't know or don't understand. And so we're trying to give them resources and information. Plus this is, this month was recognizing women as a whole, and the first week of the month was women in construction. And so our goal was to try to feature, icons that are in our industry, and you are definitely one of those. So thank you for coming on with us, and we tracked you down eventually. So you've been busy the last several weeks.
Yes, it's been a very frantic travel winter already. I'm ready for it to warm up, and it's slowing down some because as the plasters get busy, then they don't have as much time. So makes.
So you go teach people all over the country, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much just the swimming pool industry. I don't do a lot with homeowners. I do a lot of teaching for the National Plasters Council, and then I do teaching for PebbleTech applicators and their builders and service.
Okay, so for a homeowner, what's a National Plaster Council?
Well, the National Plasters Council is a nonprofit association that unites our little group of subcontractors. There's nothing else like swimming pool plaster. And so it was very hard for them to find a niche within the concrete or cement industry, because we're one of the only cementitious products that's used in an underwater environment. I know you have bridges and different things like that, but we are dealing with swimming pools, sanitation, and keeping the pool safe for kids and adults, which you don't really see where you have bridges put in place. So it's a whole different type of animal in trying to balance the water and keep the water that is in a climate that or environment that will not deteriorate the plaster while we're trying to keep it balanced.
Okay. So there's a lot of research that goes into this.
Yes.
So
things change.
So you come up with all kinds of different things and how to deal with it better. So there's research pools that are built to test all this, right?
We did have an agreement with Cal Poly Tech in San Luis Obispo, and we built 14 structures to do testing with back in 2004, 2005.
I remember that.
They have since had a alumni donor that wants to build a dorm there. So those pools are not available to us for testing anymore. You know how money talks in a college.
Yes. We're going to put your name on a building. So bye-bye pools. Somebody's going to pay for a dorm. We need that. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, so how does someone tell us about your journey? How in the world did you get into the pool business?
Oh gosh. I had decided to go back to school at UTA. I'd started out at Texas Tech. Go get your guns up. They're in the playoffs.
Yeah. Do you live here in Texas? Do you live here in
pardon?
Texas? Do you live here in Texas?
Yes, I still live in Texas.
Oh, okay.
I just live out in Northeast Texas, close to Mount Vernon.
Well, for some reason, I thought maybe you lived in Scottsdale or Phoenix area, since their headquarters are located there.
That is correct. But no, I travel so much that it didn't matter where I work from.
And I just racked my head with how is it that I've not run into you? Because I built pools in Phoenix for 30 years, and I was good friends with Bob Haining. Carla Bauer, great friends with her. I love her. Matt Sharp, who now works there, he's a rock star.
Isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's one of the smartest people I know in the pool industry. That man is very, very talented. But I just find it fascinating. I've not ran into you, but maybe it's because you are traveling and you're just not available.
I've never really spent that much time in Arizona. I've been with PebbleTech now for 14 years.
Oh, wow.
There's been some years I go maybe once a year to that area. Last summer, Matt Sharp had put together several seminars for service guys and the plaster companies. And that's kind of what got this whole education thing, that program that I'm doing now started, was because of Matt. And, but by that time you had moved back here, or you moved here, I think. So anyway, but most of my time has been spent in Texas. I spend a lot of time at the shows. Wherever the international show is, I will be there, helping with classes. Sometimes I present. Sometimes I just help with the National Plasters Council startup certification. Pardon me. And so I just traveled to do that part, but it's kind of limited to where we set up the NPC startup classes and the shows.
So in your job description, are you responsible then for the education to the plaster crews when they get certified as a PebbleTech applicator? Is that kind of your baby?
I am in that department, but and I will go out and assist, but I no longer trowel swimming pools.
Well, I realize that. And where I'm going with this is, one of the things I've always loved about PebbleTech is that they required their applicators to be certified. They had to go through some sort of educational program. Plus, I've just used the product for so long. I love it. There's lots of good products out there, but it's a little bit different with PebbleTech with what you guys do. And, like as Mike was saying, part of what we're doing is trying to educate consumers so they're asking questions to the people that come out,
right?
So that they're getting good information, so they're having a good experience. So that's really why we're asking the questions we're asking. So thank you.
Yeah. No, PebbleTech is different, in my opinion. So prior to going to work for PebbleTech, I was a third-party independent inspector on swimming pool plaster problems. And I'd go out and I'd look at these pools, and I very rarely got to look at any PebbleTech pools because of their system and the way their company is organized for the quality assurance team, so that there is a problem and you have someone coming out on site to see what's going on and figure it out. But PebbleTech, so since they follow up on their problems, it doesn't get as sticky as some other people that just plaster the pool and leave town. So it was a really good fit for me because I had the experience of doing the inspections and the detective work, so to speak, of figuring out what's gone wrong. So, but yeah, it's just very interesting to me because, even in the National Plaster Council technical manual, we talk about a high performance finish, and there's not too many products on the market that can be in that category. There are some, and we're fierce competitors, but because of that definition of a high performance product, we can be more aggressive in how we mix and how we blend in our application, because we know we're going to be able to trowel it to a point of making a very hard, dense surface that's going to last a lot longer than other things that are on the market.
Mm-hmm.
That means it lasts longer in your pool.
Well, I just think that the interior finish is like so important because to your point, we want it to be safe. Chemicals have an effect on it, the weather, the environment. I mean, everything has an effect on it. And this product, it can be really good and it can be really bad. And I'm not necessarily talking about PebbleTech. I'm just talking about interior finishes as a whole.
Yes.
And it's really, I think the problem most people have with pools is their interior finish. It's stained, it's this, it's that. It has to be cared for and has to be installed right.
Right. And that's the one thing I kind of feel whenever I'm going out to interview these homeowners once they have a problem is they feel like they don't have to take care of it as much because it is such a hard sound surface. And they don't have a problem with leaks or things like that. Most of the time it's whether they're pouring the acids on the top step because it looks cool when the bubblers comes up through it, or they're doing. So, I mean, seriously, just got off one of those.
I never thought of that. Oh, that's wild.
So it is very hard. It is very dense, but it is held together by cement, which can be dissolved by acid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting that education of balance is hard, because you add acid to take down the pH, but now you're taking down the total alkalinity. And so now you have to add baking soda to bring up the alkalinity. And then we have one of the biggest issues I see is the cyanuric acid. Once that cyanuric acid level gets over 80 to 90 parts per million, it starts to turn into a cyanurate. And a cyanurate contributes to the alkalinity. So when you're testing high cyanuric acid levels of 100 and you have a total alkalinity of 80, when you have those cyanurates so high, it's about 30% less. So you're running your alkalinity at 50, and now that's a low carbonate condition in the pool, and it's starting to pull the carbonate from the calcium carbonate, which is the cement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you know Greg Garrett?
Yes, I did.
Did you work with him over there?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Very closely.
Mm-hmm. He was awesome.
Yes, he was. I learned a lot from Greg.
I'll bet you did.
So if a homeowner is going to work on their pool and they don't know who to contact, what suggestions would you have for them to find the right process or product for them to consider in their pool? I mean, what questions should they be asking or thinking about?
Well, they need to research their finish. PebbleTech's a manufacturer. We have maintenance instructions on our website. The MPC has the startup card and maintenance instructions on their website. You can download it for free. Same thing at PebbleTech.com. So I always feel that you should go back to the manufacturer because they're making their statement of how they feel that product needs to be maintained.
Okay.
And most of the high performance finishes do have that option to their homeowners.
Okay, so it's a resource that they should look at to get the best quality out of the product, to look at that for recommendations.
Right. And I think the biggest advice anybody could give a homeowner is you really, just because it's clear doesn't mean it's balanced. And you can't not test the pool weekly just because it looks good. It has to be regularly maintained. It may be great and you've just had a swim party of 10 kids over, and then you're having the other kids' friends over the next day. You need to test and rebalance before you swim, mainly for a sanitation standpoint, not for the durability of the finish. But there's, these waterborne illnesses are becoming more common in the news. And part of that goes back to the due diligence of not just the pool service, but the homeowner taking ownership of that water.
Yeah, because the service may come out once a week.
Exactly.
But you have a big party on Friday night, and you're going to have another one on Sunday. You better do something about it. Otherwise, it's going to not be a good situation.
Well, I've always told my homeowners, at least, that, look, I recognize you're going to have a pool service company coming, but they're only going to probably come once a week. And they're going to be there for however long they're going to be there. And at the very least, probably halfway between when they come and the next time they come, you need to be testing your water, not to mention the fact that I think it's important to understand how your pool works, so that you can help keep it safe, because otherwise you're maintaining a pool like this instead of maybe like this.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm talking to people, especially service guys, and more often the ones that teach the pool school to the brand new homeowner, or pool owner, I should say. It's important for them to realize that once a week, the pool guy is there, and he may not be brushing the walls like he needs to. So he needs to include them that in his spiel to the homeowner about brushing the pool once a week, even if they have pool service, and testing about 3 or 4 days afterwards. And even more so if it's a saltwater pool, due to the high pH sanitizer that's made by the saltwater chlorinator.
Yeah, I think it comes in at 11.2.
Yes.
Okay, so I was going to ask, and that kind of goes into it. So are there particular types of sanitation that make it easier to take care of the pool than others? Or is that
it's a
fair question to ask?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, if you wanted to have almost a pH neutral sanitizer, then dichlor would be great, but 55% of every pound of dichlor is cyanuric acid. And then the 3-inch tablets aren't bad, but they have a very low pH. And 55% of each tablet is cyanuric acid.
Yeah.
So you can use one if you use it with another chlorine, whether it be Cal Hypo, which has a pH of about 11.8. Sorry, went a little high there. Or you could use your liquid chlorine, which is closer to 12. But when you use the higher pH chlorines, you have to neutralize those chlorines by lowering your acid or your pH with acid slightly.
No, and I think you're right. It does get complicated for homeowners, but if they're testing halfway through and they can see that their pH it's really low or it's really high, they can make a field adjustment. They don't get too complicated with it. It's.
I agree.
Yeah, but that you're paying attention.
That's the biggest thing is the homeowner needs to treat a pool like a car. It's got to have air in the tires. It's got to have, the oil changed. You've got to put gas in it, and it's the same type of due diligence as maintaining a car.
I would completely agree. And I think so very often, people just think that, okay, it's done. I don't have to do a whole lot with it. But the reality is the pool does take a little bit of maintenance. There's things that we can do as designers and builders to make it easier on them. Mike brought up the salt question. And so PebbleTech, as a general rule, you probably don't like seeing salt in the pools, do you? Or you don't really care? And I know, Pebble started in Australia, and I'm guessing they probably do saltwater pools all day long over there.
Yeah. We don't have any disclaimers about salt. We have a little bit different startup directions for saltwater pools, just because of waiting the 28 days before you add the salt to the pool. Mm-hmm. And the main reason is once you get a pool plastered and you got it filled with water, that it starts to cure. It's got that 28 fast and cure. And in which it's releasing plaster dust. And the pH of the plaster dust is 12 approximately. So you're not only trying to balance the water, but you've got this plaster dust that's causing it to go up on a daily basis. That's why we have something to do every day for 28 days, because we've got to get the pH under control. And then just about the time you get that done, it's time to add the salt. And now you're running into the same thing again. You're having to monitor that pH, and you may take it down to 7.2 on Tuesday, and then by Friday, it's going to be back over 8 again. So my challenge to myself this year is to work with pool techs, and if I get the opportunity, to work with homeowners, to get them to test the water twice a week instead of going for those high roller coaster waves like you were talking about. Let's maintain it down a little bit more level as best we can.
Well, and the whole startup procedure, I mean, that's like, you know, to your reference to cars, you go buy an exotic car, you got to do a startup, you know, break-in period, you know, with that engine so that it's going to last longer. So the whole point of waiting 28 days is so maybe we get a few more years, if not a lot longer, of durability and usage.
Right, exactly. And the thing that scares most people about the 28-day startup is that they don't think they can swim for 28 days. As soon as we get the pH and the alkalinity to start holding within those ranges and the calcium harness to the proper range, then they can add the sanitizer and start swimming. But they have to stay on top of that water chemistry because it's changing daily. And if you throw swimmers into that, then it's going to be changing even more rapidly.
That's exactly right. And for those that don't know, they're listening to this episode, cyanuric acid has 3 names: cyanuric acid, stabilizer, and conditioner. All the same thing.
Right.
So one of the things that someone asked the other day to me is running the heater going to cause problems with my plaster if I do that in the 28 days? So you have any recommendations with that?
Oh, I sure do. Heating up PebbleTech is not going to hurt the interior finish.
Okay.
But heating up the water and heating up your heat exchanger, all that loose plaster dust is going to be precipitated out into the heater. And in most cases, it possibly could precipitate or scale the spa or the pool. What people don't understand is that it's hard for them to imagine how something that's hot can precipitate out when we're used to hot coffee melting the sugar faster and iced tea making it harder to precipitate, to go into solution. And it's just the opposite. When you have hot water going into that heater, it's going to take that plaster dust with a high pH and start precipitating out onto the surface.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of times you can ruin your heater. It's more a deterrent to the heater performance than it is to plaster.
Well, the other thing too is the warm water changes the dynamics of the water chemistry. The LSI is going to be different. So now it gets more complicated. So I think as a general rule, what I'm hearing from you and what we've read, and I think what we know, is that best case scenario, you've made a big investment, just wait for 28 to 30 days, do the startup right, and it's just going to be so much better.
Right. I totally agree.
And that's what you're doing a lot of your education on, not only to pool service people, but when you get a chance to talk to homeowners, you tell them the same thing. And that's pretty much the message that we try to get across to people as well.
What I'm finding in my travels with working with service guys as well as plasters, and plasters don't normally challenge themselves to learn pool water chemistry. They're more active in making sure that the plaster's going right and we have a good shell, and we're doing what we can do to prevent leaks and make things beautiful. I mean, the one thing about plaster, I would say it's like 75 to 80% cosmetic, because we have no structural reinforcement of anything in that pool. Mm-hmm. So we're there to make it pretty. And so that's what the plasterers want to do. The challenge is the service guys are trying to do as much as they possibly can to get to as many pools as they can. And so you, just like the gal that was putting the acid on the bubblers because it looks pretty, they're taking their gallons of acid and they're turning them upside down. They're not thoroughly testing the water before they start to add chemicals to the pool. And then if you have a low calcium fill, there's going to be some issues with that pool if it's not adjusted immediately.
Mm-hmm. That is a fact. All that testing stuff, it's a lot of crucial information in there. Really, you shouldn't be testing a pool unless it's running, and it's been running for a while, so the water's all evenly mixed, and you got to be, chasing down at least 18 inches, which is way past your elbow.
Right.
And a lot of people are just sticking a test strip in there, looking at it very quickly, and there's a process to using that thing too. Yeah,
I'm not a test strip fan.
Yeah, not either, but I'm just saying most homeowners would be.
Well, and here's the only thing that we might have to give up a little bit on how harsh, or I am about the test strips. I think if you're a professional service person in this industry, you absolutely must use a professional kit. At the National Pool Industry Research Center, we did a study of 13 different test kits, which included liquid reagents, tablet reagents, test strips, and we had a photometer that we also used. And with the test strips, they were not accurate if there was a high chlorine level, a low pH, or a high pH.
All true.
So if any of those three things were off the chart, nothing was going to be tested correctly. Mm-hmm. I do feel that if you have done the test kit and you've made corrections and you just want to see if you're in a range the following day, I think they're a great tool.
Mm-hmm. Good information.
So you were going to build a pool in your backyard. Is there something that you would want on that pool from a maintenance standpoint and also from an aesthetic standpoint?
Oh, goodness. I would never own a pool, so I haven't thought about that much. I live on a lake.
You got a natural pool.
Yeah. But I think there's a stigma with every pool that's built that has a pool cleaner or a floor system. And to the fact that it allows the homeowners to think they don't have to do anything. And I think they're good tools, but I still think we have to encourage them to brush the walls. And we have to encourage them to brush the seats of the spa. I can't tell you the number of pools that I've been called to that says, well, the rock's falling off my steps, but the spa is too rough for us to use. And it's a matter of nobody brushing the pool down before they use it. And then so I told them to start trying that because I couldn't find any excessive rock in any other place of the pool that would allow me to think that they are losing rock. In most cases, once they brush down the pool and I call them back and ask how it's going, oh, it's helped some, or it has helped, and then it's just not the issue they thought it was. I mean, there's millions of rock in that pool, and not every piece gets stuck into the cement.
Right.
And so it takes a little bit of time. It takes its whole life, and it continues to slough slowly. But you should not ever have a major issue with cups of rock being in the pool cleaner.
Mm-hmm. That's really an interesting point too, because I think over the years, we've been doing this for 30 years, there's been products that come and go, products that are in the market. And it's often, these things are oftentimes sold as, look, if you bolt this to your pool, if you add this to your pool, you won't have to do hardly anything. And, I think from the salesperson's perspective, hey, if I can upgrade to this, I'll make a little extra commission, but I've never thought that way. I just want the pools to work for people. And there's just things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do. And certainly people need to be educated on how a floor system works. It doesn't solve all your problems. Helps. Helps a lot.
Yes.
You know, an ozone system, a UV system doesn't solve all your problems. It'll help. You know, and if you do a salt system, well, you're going to have some issues to deal with it. I mean, you just are.
Yeah. The biggest thing about some of those systems, I do believe that they're good and can be useful, but I see a lot of oversizing of those items on pools or undersizing sometimes. And I think that causes the performance of those products to be less than what they can be. So, but you know, even it's just like the saltwater pools that they actually have a pH feed. They know that the pH is going to be high, and so they put it down at 7.2, and they really should be keeping it at 7.6 because it's a constant feed. I mean, whenever it goes down, it automatically puts some more acid in. And so you either run out of acid or it just taints your total alkalinity. And now we do have pebble loss. So it's just a matter of some of those items that do make a difference in helping us maintain a more balanced water that we have to understand the pH of everything that's in that pool. Everything has a number. And when we choose just to focus on one or two, then we lose sight of what we're trying to achieve in the total water balance. And that's my next biggest challenge is maybe you have people who have been in the industry for years. They don't understand the LSI. And now that we're getting a few apps, National Plasters Council has a new app coming out for the LSI in about 3 months. And it's just going to make it so much easier for these homeowners to plug in those numbers and see if it's green or yellow or red or purple or whatever color it chooses to be to know how to do something.
That's excellent.
It just makes it, and they can follow up after their service people.
That'll be an awesome tool. So that's coming out this year?
Yes.
Awesome.
I wish I knew the exact date, but
we'll follow up with you.
Please do.
Any other advice you would give a homeowner as they to have the best situation for their backyard pool in regards to their finishes?
Your finish will last dependent on the care that they give and the time that they give to what they want, how they want it to last. I mean, we have finishes, PebbleTech finishes that are 20 or 25 years old. Yes, the pigment might be a little bit lighter, but they're still in good, hard, sound shape to continue to do what they do. But the owners of those pools do go out and take care of them and do brush them. And it has to almost be a hobby. If you're turning it into a chore, that's kind of like having to mow a big yard, and then you put a big pool in because you don't want to mow the big yard. And you've got to pick what you can enjoy doing. And again, the service guys do come in, but the biggest thing is ownership of the pool. That's what I run into most of the times when I go to the backyard to look at a problem.
If you could, for our listeners, because we're talking with PebbleTech, and I'm a fan, been a fan all along, tell us a little bit about the difference of what Pebble Technology does when you guys are selecting product from around the world, because we're talking about interior finishes, we're talking about an aggregate finish. We all can agree that an aggregate finish is probably going to be the most durable finish over the life expectancy of a pool. Everything has, a life expectancy. Pools do too. I mean, it just happens to be one of those things that people think are going to last forever. But that surface itself, you guys do some really different stuff than, say, other companies do or other manufacturers do. So give us a little bit of insight on what Pebble Technology does and why it's important that you guys do it that way.
As far as mining the rock, we try to make sure that we're getting the type of rock that's going to be of the consistency so that it can be comfortable walking on rocks. We do have some irregular rock in there because that's what helps hold that together and blend and mesh so that when we're troweling it, you don't have round rocks rolling around everywhere. We're able to get that compaction because we've got those irregular rocks in there. We run that material through all kinds of magnets to try to remove any metals that might be an issue. Because back in 2010, there was some mined product that the magnets failed. And we had over $2 million worth of pools that were roof plastered because of that mine issue. So we're very diligent about watching for that now. We've increased the different type of rocks and even glass beads now. We've got a brand new pebble quartz finish, which we have the pebble fina, and pebble fina was made of not only quartz, but silica and marble. But now the pebble quartz is quartz and silica. So it's a very hard, durable surface. When you add our P3, which is what our pozzolans and polymers are that we use to make it a more dense and trowelable type of finish, then we can get the compaction that we need. The whole thing about the interior finish is that it doesn't make it waterproof. We're only making that surface watertight. Mm-hmm. Because of the ratios we use of 1 cement to 1.5 aggregate, that's a very, very rich mix. And when you compare that to sidewalks or driveways that are 1 part cement to about 5 to 6 parts aggregate that don't need to be kept under the water, the reason we do is because that cement requires that water to maintain its integrity. Again, there's no structural benefit from plaster. It is cosmetic, but we do waterproof that finish. We do make the finish watertight so that it will maintain that integrity, but it must keep the water on it throughout the life of the plaster. I mean, you can drain it down, do some repairs every now and then, but most of the time we're going to tell you not to drain the pool for an extended period of time.
I noticed that you have a new black pebble sheen that's coming out, and I'm a big fan of black pools. I know you are. You've done some great, beautiful black pools. I just think they're amazing. And is that product actually in distribution now and able to apply?
I believe the samples are going out. I know that we did some test pools last year, but I fully believe that it's going to be available pretty quick, before June or so. But yeah, it's beautiful. It doesn't have a speck or two of brown in it. You can't get 100% in any of these rocks, but it is gorgeous.
I've sold 3.
Good job.
Yeah, but of course,
I'm working on 2.
It takes forever for my pools generally to get built, so it'll probably be next year when the water goes in them. So anyway,
well, let me know and I'll come hang out with you when you're doing the install.
Yeah, well, we're doing the layout for one of them Thursday, so the construction's actually starting on it. So it's
good.
It's a big vanishing edge one, so it'll be cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing it as well. Any last tips that you can think of for a homeowner?
Oh goodness,
so we've got 28 days. Don't use
28 days for the startup,
and don't use your heater in those 28 days. And
yes, and most of the time we request that you not add a wheeled pool sweep for about 2 weeks or until there's no longer any plaster dust. I will say that I know some of our builders go ahead and add it because they haven't seen any wheel marks in the pool, but I still would recommend waiting the 2 weeks until you're, when you brush that pool, you don't see any plaster dust. I will say that it is very beneficial to brush as frequently as possible in the first 28 days. If you miss a day, I understand, but if you can get twice a day brushing in on those things, it just really makes for a better surface, because anything that might be not completely embedded gets out of there, then you don't have anything that is still sloughing a month after you've finished your startup.
Makes perfect
sense.
So
brushing does help.
Mm-hmm.
Brush.
Brush.
Awesome.
But I can see how it's difficult for homeowners, man. Can you imagine the Porsche dealership parking a new 911 Carrera in your garage and saying you can't drive it for 30 days?
But they can drive it. They can swim in it. They just got to be brushing.
Sure. So you can drive your Porsche. You just got to stay in the garage.
There you are, just back and forth.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
You have so much knowledge. We have barely tapped any of it, but anyway, we're going to leave your contact information also with people. So if they've got questions about your aggregate finish, they can reach out to you.
I'd be more than happy to answer those questions.
Yeah.
Well, let Matt know I said hey.
Oh, I definitely will.
He was a great add to Pebble Technology.
Oh,
and I'm guessing he's probably helping out on the tile stuff too, because he's really knowledgeable on tile.
Yeah, well, and the light strings is pretty cool stuff. So
it is, and just the fact too that he has experience on the service side. I mean, just really, I mean, it's a great fit, and he's a good guy for it. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, he's such a motivator too. When he came to me and he says, Jana, I don't think people are getting this high cyanuric acid thing. And he said, but I also don't think the service guys get it either. And I said, I agree. They don't understand the effects of it in regards to the total alkalinity and the carbonate alkalinity. And when he's the one that arranged my first teaching clinic, and he was able to get almost 140 people there for 2 sessions. And
not surprised.
Yeah. So it's been good, and we need to probably going to try it again in May.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, if I don't see you, we'll see you, I'm sure, in November at the international show. We tend to see each other only at the shows, but anyway.
I know.
So,
well, I don't know. Just let me know when you're putting in one of my products. Maybe I'll pop in.
Well, that's a definite. So anyway, and hopefully that's going to be before November. So
sounds good, guys.
Thank you for your time and insights.
Thank you so much, Jana.
Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Take care. Too. So that was amazing talking with Kate there. Some really, really good information. And I found out some new things about her in the process.
I thought it was interesting too. And I don't know, I just like people for the most part, but you just kind of can feel an aura of she really loves what she does.
Very passionate.
Very passionate. She cares. And, that's a great mix.
Yeah. So it's really fun too, as a designer, I loved her answer. Her inspiration is her clients.
It was a good one.
So it doesn't go somewhere to get inspiration. She just meets with them and listens to them and comes up with their unique thing for them.
No, and she said she didn't have a specific style, which is a good thing. She doesn't, didn't pigeonhole herself in some place. But yeah, she's a plethora of information and knowledge, and she's contributing to the industry. I mean, she's a great resource for anybody.
Oh, I've been to numerous one of her classes, and she is so detailed down to, like she taught a class on small spaces, and every slide she would even have and this piece of furniture is available through this and this model number and just resource after resource after resource of information on things. And her design classes are very, very well taught. Even with someone that I have a degree in landscape architecture and design, but it was very helpful and beneficial. Some of the things that I took and immediately applied.
Yeah, she's great.
So everybody, go check her out in the Genesis classes that'll be coming out, or there's a lot of them that you can even take online, but a real great resource. So.
And for the consumers, we'll have some pictures that link to our website. I mean, you could get some inspiration there possibly on something. I mean, it doesn't hurt to look at all these, people that have been around a long time that have some great experience.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mike, what do you think about Jana?
Well, Jana has so much knowledge about how plaster works.
Mm-hmm.
And she has been the resident expert in Texas for a long period of time. And then PebbleTech hired her so she could take her knowledge base and spread it out more across the country, plus all the stuff she does with the National Plaster Council. So she knows everything about taking care of plaster.
Well, and the fact that she's here and she mainly does business here other than what she does for PebbleTech, I guess is the reason why. Because, living in Phoenix, I just had never run into her before.
Yeah. Well, we've known each other for a long, long time because, when she was the volunteer of the year, I was one of those volunteers too, but, helping out. So we've gone back a long ways before it was PHTEA and before it was ASP.
Oh, back to the NSPI days?
NSPI days, yeah. So we're going way back. Our industry's changed initials a number of times, but, she is just a great resource. And she is almost at all the trade shows teaching and helping people learn about plaster. So this is the season that she finally gets to slow down because all the trade shows are about over.
And these are the people that, again, her passion, and I could just tell listening to her, I mean, she really is into that whole water chemistry thing and how important it is. And it's just good. Great.
Well, she wants people to have a great product and make it last a long time. And so if she can help people not make mistakes, like, making sure you brush,
mm-hmm.
and, get your water chemistry correct, and, your product's going to last longer. No,
and to that point, if there's anything that came out of this, it's just how important that startup procedure is.
Oh, 100%. So you've got to have somebody that knows what they're doing, take care of whatever product that you have that's going in, because they're all a little different in how they should be started up. And I liked her tip of going and looking at the resources provided by the manufacturer.
That's a great one. It is.
So, well, once again, we've had a lot of people with a lot of experience that offer a lot of different perspectives. So it was really cool to hit all these iconic figures this month in the industry.
Female figures.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They know a lot.
They do.
And get a lot done.
I wish I could just stick a USB right into the back of their head and extract all that information out.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the only information I would want.
Of course. So, look forward to talking with everybody next. Someone asked me the other day about the word of the day, and we're catching back up on those. Mm-hmm. But if you have words that are of interest or questions that are of interest, please forward those to us. And also, someone asked me, well, you keep talking about doing these reviews. Where in the world do I find it to do a review? And I had to stop and think about it. So on Apple, if you go to our episodes and go to the very end, that's where you'll find the place to do the review on the podcast. So you can write a review or give us a 5-star review. Those are helpful to help basically expose us to more people, to know and figure out what's going to work best for their pool and outdoor living space.
Yes, sir.
Well, we'll have some more fun stuff coming next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
Look forward to it.